Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for Wednesday's show. On the first graphic here, we've got the first graphic will be the warning map, I hope. And there we go. Whoop, went right by it. Anyway, the area there was for the central Tanana Valley, back up into portions of the Yukon and the 40-mile areas. There's a flood watch out that starts tonight at midnight, after midnight, or right at midnight for those areas, and expected to pick up 1 to 2 inches of rain by tomorrow night. And some areas north of Fairbanks or in the hills could pick up to 3 inches. So they have the flood watches out there. So this will be a thing of the past, any fire danger. In fact, Monday had warnings out, fire danger warnings out for the same area that now, 48 hours later, has flood watches out for. That all due to the moisture, portion of the upper level low pulling northward, heavy rain falling at 4 p.m. at Nenana. And this band right through here has a pretty narrow area of moderate showers. In fact, a thunderstorm there at just north of Huslia late this afternoon. That extends back up to the northwest there, and otherwise a lot of showers and rain falling across the eastern interior here. Delta Junction back up towards Fairbanks, and it clears out a little here in the upper Yukon Valley areas, but there were some thunderstorms due to that clearing that were triggered due to the heating of the afternoon and the daytime just southeast of Arctic Village there over toward the border. And then had some rain falling at Yakutat. In fact, they picked up over an inch in the last 24 hours there. Lighter amounts back to the west and also down the coastline where Annette had about 2/10 of an inch. Otherwise, a little bit heavier. Juneau picked up about 1/3 of an inch and near a 1/2 inch there over at Sitka. Rain also moving southeastward here. Came onto the southwest coast and the Nunivak Island area last night. That spread southeastward, as you can see there, the main low back in this area and the back edge of the front right through there, just dragging across the Pribilof Islands. Really weak back in this area, not producing a whole lot of moisture there. No precipitation today at Unalaska, but as that front approached, the winds out ahead of it kicked up to 50 miles an hour in gusts at Cold Bay. Otherwise, you're looking at 15 to 30 mile an hour winds there, especially on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula this afternoon. Rain spreading into the area, again, about 1/3 of an inch falling at King Salmon. And Bethel picked up 4/10 of an inch. So a pretty good rain producer here, and that's going to continue to move off to the southeast this evening. That'll bring a shot of rain across Kodiak Island during the night tonight, and then that should begin to pull off to the east. So it'll be the rain changing to a few scattered showers by tomorrow afternoon in that area. Otherwise, not too bad. Cleared out over the Seward Peninsula. A lot of sunshine there. As you can see, temperatures rising into the 60s away from the coastline there, and even over the Yukon Delta a little bit, and then some north winds kicking up to 15 to 25 miles an hour, clearing it out on the lee side of the mountains there down toward Kivalina for some sunshine. Otherwise, westerly winds picked up 20 to 30 miles an hour there, Kotzebue, and blowing into the Selawik Valley with the lower pressure over the inland areas here. And that's kind of helping to converge the air mass there to trigger those showers and thunderstorms along that line I pointed out earlier. More cloudiness out here over the Bering Sea, but most of the rain-producing type of moisture is going to stay back to the west as high pressure will follow this system in. This is the location at 10 a.m. this morning, right in that area. The frontal boundaries pushing southeastward, following the upper level wind flow with the rain spreading down along the peninsula areas. Here's a low in the Gulf of Alaska, and that brought the rain to the North Gulf Coast, especially there to the Yakutat area, as well as bands of showers even moving across the southern areas, but seeing some clearing this afternoon down in that area. And this is the system that's bringing all the rain now to the eastern interior and extending all the way up to the Arctic coast there. Kaktovik, dense fog, light rain, but patchy fog over to about Barrow. Not so bad here back to the west with a more offshore flow direction, and that comes back around to the west-northwest, and that's going to carry this system tonight right down by 4 a.m. tomorrow. Should be in about this location here, so moving quite rapidly. But once it gets into the northeast Pacific here, it's going to slow down. And even though there's high pressure here at the surface over the northern southeast coast, upper level low still in this area out here, so that's going to keep the showers south or southwest flow tonight. We'll keep those showers moving in to a lesser extent down to the south there as this system here begins to rob some of the moisture from that. But the upper level wind flow with the upper low remaining off the coast will go from south-southwest tonight to more of a south-southeast direction tomorrow night. So this system will get caught up in that, and it looks like tomorrow night and into Friday, that'll be tracking north-northwestward just east of the border. So probably some more showers with that coming in at least tomorrow night, and then ending from south to north on Friday. So you're going to develop into a kind of a partly sunny, isolated to widely scattered showers over the southern areas for Friday. Northern areas will be kind of a mostly cloudy with scattered showers over that area. And otherwise for tonight here, the interior, again, the rain, flood watch starts at midnight and continues through tomorrow. So a lot of moderate to heavy showers continuing in this area tomorrow, definitely. Thunderstorms as well. Any one of could end up with some embedded thunderstorms. It looks like mostly definitely over in Canada and maybe back up to the north there. Could be an isolated thunderstorm here and some of the heavier showers that develop over the western Alaska range. But back to the west, look for partly, in some cases even mostly sunny conditions. The lower clouds burning off somewhat in the afternoon, but staying pretty well entrenched over the coastal areas, except on the lee side of the terrain here. High pressure, light winds out over the Bering Sea. That's going to keep this system back to the east there, so it won't follow its the one that's dropping southeastward. This is going to stay back to the west and shift off to the north. This front will weaken, spread rain eastward tonight, but not much in the way of any wind. Nikolsky should see some rain moving in after midnight. It's going to stay kind of damp and wet back to the west. And also here, a lot of leftover moisture really from the trailing edge of this system here. Could bring some drizzle into St. George, maybe St. Paul Island, as well as much of the coastline here from Cape Sarachev all the way up to possibly Egegek. Otherwise, just some isolated showers tomorrow, Kodiak Island and the Kenai Peninsula. Dry conditions from Anchor Point to Kenai, and that should extend across Anchorage, Palmer, and the valleys as well. Should stay pretty dry. Could see some sprinkles or occasional light showers or a period of light rain or showers tonight, and then that should be it. Probably back to partly sunny, hopefully, tomorrow afternoon. All the rain will be up toward the Alaska Range and northward, all the way up to the eastern Brooks Range areas. And then for Friday, it looks like the driest locations will be here over toward the border, all the way down to maybe a sunny day in Yakutat with a few isolated showers. Again, this low tracking up like this, so at least starting the day, you'll have a few more showers in the morning. Look for partial clearing there down to the south as this system edges its way toward the Queen Charlotte Islands. And then still have a trough here. Could be some scattered thunderstorms, pretty moderate to heavy showers here from all along the Alaska Range, from the Nikolai-McGrath area all the way down into the Aleutian Range, but high pressure holding over the northern Bering Sea. And again, this front really washed out now. In fact, if it became any thinner, it wouldn't even exist. This one also breaking up considerably, just some areas of light rain, clouds, drizzle with that. No wind at all, very light winds here over the Aleutians. Also, the northern Bering Sea looking at quite light wind conditions, no advisories at all out for winds anywhere. Possibly, you might see some 20 to 23 knot gusts there on the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, continuing light. Lots of sunshine back here to the west in the afternoon. to a lesser extent out toward the coastline with areas of fog, of course, through the Bering Strait areas all the way down to the Pribilofs. But again, not too bad, and just an isolated shower or two over the Kenai Peninsula, a little more scattered up over the Talkeetna Mountains, Copper River Basin, and again, the heavier stuff, but probably starting to die back a little bit there over the interior on Friday over what you'll see tonight and tomorrow. Temperatures today, 49 in Yakutat with rain, but up to 55 at Sitka. Otherwise, southeast coast running in the 50s. Lower 50s for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Mid 50s to lower 60s here for the south central Alaska areas. 56 up the valley at Talkeetna. 57 degrees. South winds gusting 30 to 35 miles an hour. Gull Canyon along the Copper River. 54 at Northway. 45 rain. Delta, 54 rain in Fairbanks. Tanana, moderate rain. 56 degrees. 61 at Fort Yukon. 66 up at Arctic Village. A little cooler at Anatuvik, but Battle's had 66 degrees and a 63 at Ambler. Arctic Coast, mid to upper 30s this afternoon, but Dead Horse, 41 degrees. Same thing over at Point Hope. Otherwise, 53 at Kotzebue with gusty winds, 45 Kivalina, 41 at Shishmaref, but up to 57 degrees at Nome, 34 at Savunga, and 50s here over the interior, but sleep mute up to 61, down back toward 40 degrees as you get out toward the coastline. Upper 40s to the Pribilofs, same thing for the Aleutians, but 46 at Nikolsky and a 54 at Unalaska and Sand Point. For the lows tonight, 40s over the interior, 30s up along the Arctic coast in the northwest areas of St. Lawrence Island, 40s everywhere else. Highs tomorrow back into the mid-60s, upper 60s. Some locations may reach 70 degrees where it's sunnier, and 60s all the way out to the coastline here or near the coastline, otherwise 40s and 50s, 30s for the Arctic coast, and 50s and 60s for the Panhandle. Flying weather becoming VFR, at least that's a forecast here for all of the southeast coast. Some of this may break off on a couple of those bands and work in, especially during the afternoon hours. May get a surge of moisture coming up that could produce some areas of marginal VFR over the interchannel areas to the north. And back along the Alaska Range and to the west, pretty good chance of seeing some IFR or marginal VFR on those western approaches, Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, up to the north a ways. Marginal VFR, could even be some IFR in there at times. Definitely on the eastern Arctic coast, but better to the west. IFR forever there on the north side of the Seward Peninsula, Shishmaref to Tin City. Big area IFR here over the southern Bering Sea, and the Aleutians gradually spreading eastward. And then for Anatuvik, VFR tomorrow, both sides of the pass. Adigan, VFR, kind of concerned about some moisture that may slide southeastward and could bring these northern entrances into a marginal condition, but that may just stay VFR, whatever moisture comes down. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, lowest conditions will be on the western entrances, better on the east side. Same forecast for Rainy, highest conditions on the east entrance, lower on the west. Windy, just call it marginal VFR at times. A risk of some IFR in the north entrance early. Isabel, I'm going to go IFR for that pass there due to the higher elevation. Mentasta, marginal. Tanita, VFR, and Portage could start out marginal and then become VFR, or it could become VFR, or it could stay VFR from start to finish. Chilkoot and White, VFR, possibly becoming marginal later in the day. And for the freezing levels, cold pool here over the Northeast Pacific associated with that cold upper low, piece of which is shifting into the interior, or has shifted into the interior. Better conditions, weak upper high here, providing the dry and in some cases sunny conditions up in that area. The warmer air out here to the west, but there is this one upper low cutting into the western Aleutians, supporting that frontal system that's really going to be washing out and won't be much of a factor over the next 36 to 48 hours. But tomorrow with that could be some areas of moderate rime icing below 20,000 feet. That'll probably be isolated, but I threw it in there anyway. Areas of light though, and over the interior here with all the moisture, look for mainly mixed icing, freezing level to 15,000 feet, and there's still a risk here over the southeast coast. Couple of lows, one the upper center, that's bringing the rain and the flood watches into the interior. This one is the one that's coming out of Bristol Bay tonight and tomorrow being about this location, and the flow more southerly, so the system down here will be tracking northward just east of the border tomorrow night and into Friday, and then the next low back out to the west will pretty much stay out there. High pressure from the Chukchi Sea all the way down to the Fox Islands across the Pribilof, so very light variable winds through there, north to northeast, 10 to 20, 15 to 30 knot winds here with this low center over the 40-mile country, eastern Tanana Valley. Weak low hanging back in Bristol Bay due to this easterly flow coming across there, and that's going to make it harder to clear out for Kodiak Island, but it should dry out anyway. Whatever rain will just pass right on through and head into the northeast Pacific, and then that next system out to the west. 3,000 feet, same pattern here, high pressure, weak low pushing into the Aleutians. This system sliding eastward, eventually will kick in across the Queen Charlottes, and the low up over the interior producing the rain. Turbulence, not much, looks pretty smooth most everywhere. Maybe some areas of isolated moderate below about 3,000 feet here for the Aleutians. That'll be early, actually late tonight into early tomorrow, and then that'll end by afternoon, and then maybe the eastern Arctic coast will be some isolated moderate chop there, mechanical turbulence to some gusty northeast winds that may develop, and that's about it. Pretty smooth everywhere else. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
There are some important things we can all do to avoid runway incursions. Things we probably all know, or have known but forgotten, or that we sometimes overlook because of distractions. Some of these things are simply plain old common sense. Always look, listen, and expect the unexpected. Minimize distractions by keeping a sterile cockpit while taxiing. Know where you are and where you're going. Never guess. Always know. And if you don't know or are uncertain, always ask. And that brings me to a word or two about the best ally we pilots have at Howard Airport, the air traffic controller.
Runway 25 left at Delta position and hold traffic on the downwind.
These are the professionals dedicated to leading us safely through the often complex and confusing runways and taxiways and traffic of a Howard Airport.
Cessna 60 Papa turning base at the 605 freeway, report turning final.
The pace of air traffic communications can be confusing, even overwhelming. We should not feel hesitant to ask controllers to repeat an instruction, to ask for progressive taxi instructions if we need them.
Monroe Ground, Cherokee 32123, request progressive taxi instructions, please. November, Charlie, Bravo.
If you don't know, ask. If you aren't sure, verify.
When communicating with air traffic control, always listen before you transmit.
Cessna 3284 Delta, holding position, runway 19 right.
Also, listen to what the controller is saying to other aircraft. It can have a critical bearing on your safety. Again, maintaining situational awareness at all times is key. Be sure you understand all air traffic control instructions. If you receive a clearance you don't understand or is contrary to your position on the airport, you should verify the clearance.
Cessna 4530 Papa. Runway 19 full length, clear for takeoff.
Tower Tower, Cessna 4530 Papa. Is at Bravo 3. Verify we're still clear for takeoff.
Cessna 30 Papa. Negative, hold your position.
4530 Papa. Holding short, runway 19 at Bravo 3.
Runway incursions occur most frequently when pilots enter or cross a runway without authorization. Typically, communication between the pilot and air traffic control is good. Pilots hear and read back hold short instructions and know what they're supposed to do.
Cessna 93018, hold short, runway 26 right.
But they cross hold short lines or taxi on the runway without authorization anyway. Always read back all hold short instructions.
Arrow 1504, hold short, runway 6 left.
Arrow 1504, hold short, runway 6 left.
A simple Roger won't do. This applies to position and hold and clearances to enter a runway as well.
Cessna 80138, position and hold, runway 25 left.
Cessna 80138, position and hold, runway 25 left.
We can avoid most runway incursions by reducing distraction in the cockpit while taxiing, familiarizing ourselves with our departure and our destination airports, and staying alert at all times.
Be sure to write down taxi instructions, but never do it on the move. It can be a distraction. The same is true with checklists. Conduct them while stopped, never on the move. Pilots, controllers, and drivers all rely on their eyes as their primary sensors. And the simple fact is, our eyes don't work as well at night as they do during the day. The visual acuity we lose at night, combined with inconsistent cockpit lighting, canopy reflections, and possible rain, snow, or fog, make taxi, takeoff, and landing operations that seem easy during the day a real challenge at night. Pilots should observe a few simple lighting standards that will help those around them maintain their situational awareness. When taxiing into position and hold, turn on all exterior lights except landing lights. This will make your aircraft more conspicuous to other aircraft on final. Don't turn on your landing lights until you have been given clearance to take off. If you see an aircraft with its landing lights turned on, it's a clear signal that that aircraft is moving or is about to move down the runway for takeoff. When instructed to cross a runway, turn on all lights, including landing lights. The exception would be if your lights would interfere with someone holding or approaching from the other side of the runway. Also, when you line up for departure at night, consider lining up about 3 feet to the left or right of center line, so another pilot on final can more easily distinguish your aircraft from the runway lights.
Welcome back. Well, still have that open area now here, Barrow on down the coastline, with still some shore fast up along the coastline. In fact, that area's been there since last week, and not a lot of wind up here, so don't expect too much change tomorrow except for those gusty winds again in the afternoon. Sea breeze here cutting across in from the west, but that won't have much of an effect on moving the ice around too much. And for the marine forecast, again, look for some small craft advisories like today. Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area is light and variable over the inside waters on the central areas, more of a northwest direction down to the south, and light winds 10 to 15 knots here on the south coast. Up to the north, those southerlies 20 knots with seas running 8 to 12 feet. And then on Friday, lighter winds and slighter seas as well. Winds 10 to 15 knots from the south-southwest, and over the inside waters 25 knots again. In the afternoon, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay areas, and pretty light 5 to 15 knot winds elsewhere here. These winds probably could come up tomorrow or Friday evening. There's that next system, depending on how far north it tracks and how fast and how strong it is. Otherwise, it'll stay under small craft advisory through Friday. Light variable winds here for the Barren Islands, and east to 25 knots possible there for the central Gulf Coast. Lighter in Prince William Sound. Light variable winds for Cook Inlet in the north side, but south to southwest. Up to 25 knots to Shelikof Strait tomorrow. Westerlies 25. Kodiak Island in the morning, coming down in the afternoon. And then really light winds, 5 to 15 knots from a southwesterly direction, just about all areas for Friday here, right up. And then takes a turn to the east here for the central Gulf Coast, but only 15 knots. Of course, seas running 2 to 5 feet. And for Bristol Bay tomorrow, a light westerly breeze at about 10 knots, seas running 5 feet. North 15 here, Sitkinak to Chignik. Northwest 25, so small craft advisories early tomorrow. And there for the Alaska Peninsula, and probably going under that tomorrow afternoon, especially later. West winds 20 on the Bering Sea side, and light variable winds 5 knots right under area high pressure here. So that's really going to lay the winds down. Seas 5 feet, not too strong either here for the Alaska Peninsula, variable to east at 10. But Bristol Bay still looking at 15 knot winds from the west, and that's about it. For the Aleutians, northeast 20 back here over the western zones, and ahead of the front, of course, southeast at about 20 knots, but all under small craft advisories here, and becoming westerly 10 to 20 knots for the eastern Aleutians. And then on Friday, it looks like pretty light winds. Could see some northwesterlies at 20 here, west of Adak over to about Kiska Island, and back to the real light stuff to the Shemya area. Light variable to easterly here, 10 knots. In fact, all these winds 5 to 15 knots, mostly from the east there, all the way across to Unalaska. And for the southwest coast, mostly southwest 25 here, south of Nunivak Island, on into Kuskokwim Bay. Small craft advisories for the Pribilofs, west up to 30 knots, northwest 25 for St. Matthew Island zone, and east 25 there for the St. Lawrence Island area. Friday, really light winds. In fact, later tomorrow, actually, that was a mistake. St. Lawrence Island is going to be light and variable tomorrow for the winds under high pressure. So that was that map snuck in there and got me. Otherwise, pretty light winds here, northwest, 10 knots for the southwest coast. Actually, tomorrow they'll be northwest at about 15 for these areas. East, 5 knots. So light winds in store for the Pribilofs on Friday. And up along the Arctic coast, easterlies up to 20 knots on the east side, 15 on the central coast, and they mostly northerly. Could see some 25-knot gusts here for the western capes, and again, north turning west in toward Kotzebue in the afternoon. They could kick back up to 25 knots. And much the same thing on Friday, maybe a little less. Keep it under small craft advisory levels there. Pretty light there for that marine zone. Northeast, possibly as high as 20 knots for the western Arctic coast. And east to northeast, 15 to 25, 3 knots or so there for the east side. And for tonight, flood watches start at midnight for the interior valleys, mostly the Tanana Valley eastward, and will continue tomorrow. And that's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.